Good afternoon, scholars. I am going to provide this video for you as promised to make sure that you have an understanding of what is expected in this Signature 2 project or Signature Project 2. I've had a lot of questions and I'm doing my best to answer them, but I am afraid that if I answer too many things in written format, it's going to get even more confusing than it is now. And it's actually very simple. I'm going to share my screen with you as I normally do so that I can walk through every step of this project with you. But before I do that, I always emphasize that the Signature Project 2 is something that's embedded in 2 to 3 of my courses. It is not an assignment that I have. I don't give it to you. I just have to make sure that it is done. It is a continuation of Signature Project 1 that you would have had in another course. And in my course, you complete the video. Think about it in this way. This is a major emphasis. You wrote a paper in another course, you conducted research, or you may not have had a chance to finish the research, but you have projected results. I did not take that course with you. I did not administer it. So I have absolutely no idea what your research is. You would be coming to my class to essentially say, hey, Dr. Dunbar does not know what my project is. Let me explain it to her. Let me explain it to my classmates, even though your peers won't see it. But it's like if you would get up in front of your class and do a presentation. Let me share my screen with you quickly. All right, I am going to, let's go to the learning module so you know exactly where you're supposed to go. You will scroll down to week 5. I have put it there because that is where you will submit it. You go to week 5 in the module and you look for submission link for Signature Project 2. This is only for the traditional MED students. If you were an Alt A student, you do not have to do this. So technically, if you're watching the video, you can stop if you're Alt A, but as a traditional student, you need to watch it. Look right here where it says Screencast-O-Matic. You're not actually going to use Screencast-O-Matic. I think people have been having issues with that. Screencast-O-Matic is what the department has recommended. I don't mind if you use Zoom like I'm using now, where you have your screen and then you have yourself in the box. I don't mind if you use Canva to record it. It's whatever you want to use that will capture the video. The primary thing is that I have to hear you. If you have slides with no audio, I can only grade you what's on the slides, but you will not get as much credit as you would if you had the video, because the purpose is to explain your project and you want to do bullet points. You do not want to give full paragraphs because that's too much to read. This is the overview. This is what has been outlined for you. What I'm hoping is that, let's see, I'm going to stop my share and start again just to make absolutely sure that you're able to see it. Here's the project overview. You are supposed to come up with a plan for school improvement based upon whatever research you decided to do. Again, I don't know what that is. You pull together your project. Stage 1 is your research proposal. You have a research problem. You do your literature review and your methodology. I'm scrolling through this part quickly because you already did part 1. Your background information, how you would actually pull your project together. Now, step 2 is the part that you share with me. You will have finished this paper in another course. And then when you come to me, you will say, here, Dr. Dunbar, this is what I did. When you make your slides, Prezi, Canva, PowerPoint, whatever medium you decide to use, these are going to be your categories. You're going to start with whatever your original data are. Remember, the word data is plural. The singular is datum. So when I hear you talk in your video, please don't say the data is, the data was. It will be the data are, the data were. It is a plural noun, right? So you're going to think about, what is the identified problem? What was the thing that you were trying to research? What is it that you were trying to figure out to take care of? Something that you wanted to learn. Based upon what that was, you will give me data that even led you to this point. If you were looking at reading scores for your second graders, there have to be some set of data in place that says that the reading scores for second graders were low at the onset. You have to tell me what the data were that led you to this. What is the problem that you were trying to research? Why did you decide to research that? And then you summarize what your background investigation was. What process did you go through to get information that you have? Now, this is different from the action plan. It instead is, how did you gather information that would lead you to this point? So you do have to have a set of numerical data. It can be tests that were conducted the previous year, like in-school tests. It can be standardized tests. Because I know that like a lot of ACAP testing is taking place right now. Anything that's going to lead you to the identified problem. Then what you are going to do is you are going to tell me what the action plan was. What did you decide that you wanted to research? If it was about reading scores, then you may say, all right, I want to know how an intervention can improve the reading scores for second graders in this school. I need to know what it is that you were trying to research. You have to then tell me the entire plan that you used to put together this research project. Who were the subjects that you did your research on? You have to give me a description of these individuals. In addition to that, you're going to tell me, what instrument did you use? Surveys, observations, phone calls, a pre-test and a post-test. How did you gather the data that you received for this? Hold on just a moment. I'm going to stop my screen share for just a moment. Okay, I paused the recording because I knew someone was about to ring my doorbell and my puppy was going to bark. So let me go back to sharing my screen. So the last thing that I was telling you is that you want to give a description of your sample and your instrumentation. The instrumentation essentially is going to be, how did I collect the data? I told you about that. You may have done a survey. You may have done a pre-test or a protest. Oh gosh, a post-test. But here's what happens with that. In every one of these that you see listed here, you have to be ridiculously descriptive. I keep saying this over and over again. I will not have read your paper, so I don't know what your research is. And you're going to have to say, I've got to give her the most amount of information possible so she'll know what it is that I did. Your collaborative efforts. Who are the people that you had to work with in order to make this happen? You're not going to necessarily collaborate with your students. You may have had to collaborate with special education teachers, counselors, administrators, parents. You need to tell me all of the people who were involved to make this research happen. What were the procedures? So it's not just under instrumentation that you tell me how you collected data. Under procedures, you're going to specifically say what you did. This is where things get really tricky and where people lose points because in each of these sections, people just give an overview and they are not descriptive. So for your procedures, if you're looking at second graders who you want to see if something helps increase their scores, one of the things you have to tell me is what type of intervention did you use? You cannot just say, I gave them a pretest, then I gave them a post-test. Somewhere in there, there has to be some intervention that we believe that if we gave a 2-month-long seminar where students would come after school every day for 2 months, that it would help improve their reading scores. That's your intervention. The intervention is the after-school program for 2 months. Well, the procedure then is that students would have their regular classes during the day, and in the afternoon, you have a group that comes in, and there are intervention teachers who will work with them after school. The procedure would be that we worked with them 30 minutes every day after school. We gave them these particular materials to supplement their learning. Then we had hands-on activities to help them with their learning. Then after that, we would give them mini assessments. I need to know step by step what you did. Now, you will also talk about internal and external validity. Do not say to me, there was internal and external validity in this research because what I did was I used a standardized test. That does not tell me anything. What it says is that you don't know what internal, external validity means. And what I have found is that a lot of scholars are simply reading whatever was in their paper from, excuse me, I have a piece of chocolate with nuts in it. They're reading whatever they have in their paper from their previous class, but they do not understand it. So please don't come on your video just regurgitating what was in your paper. You need to make sure that you understand it, because otherwise it means nothing. And you're working on being a good researcher anyway. You need to know the difference between internal and external validity. I'm not going to tell you what that is right now because that's not my job, because I didn't teach that particular course. But before you get on and simply say, this research has internal and external validity, be prepared to explain what that internal and external validity was, okay? You have to describe the ethical considerations when you implement your plan. Now, your ethical considerations are going to involve making sure that if you have special populations, that you provide accommodations for them. Your students with special needs are going to be special populations. If you have some students who have certain living situations that might have an impact on your work, that might be a special population. Students with language differences will be a special population. Include information about that. Even if you have children with different religious beliefs, that is an ethical consideration, because you would have to talk about how you made sure to respect their religious beliefs. Now, be honest, if you did not do that in your research and you're listening to me say it now, and you didn't do it, you need to say that here are the ethical considerations that I should have taken into thought, but I did not during this research. And then that's where you go back later in your reflection and say, this is what I would have done differently. I'm telling you all, because I am not connected to this work at all, I am super objective. I'm not subjective in any way whatsoever. I'm going only based upon what you tell me. And if you don't tell me everything, then I'm automatically going to take off points for it. Confidentiality. Excuse me, just a moment. Let's see. No, did that stop the share? Your screen sharing is paused. Let's resume. All right, confidentiality. This drives me up a wall because scholars will say, I took the names of the students and I put them in a file cabinet where they will be kept for a minimum of 2 years and no one will have access to them. That's not true. I know better than that. The average person does not take the names of students, put them in a file cabinet, lock them away for 2 years. I already know you didn't do that. So please don't say that. When you talk about the confidentiality that you have for this, it is how did you make sure that you protected the identity of the students? How did you make sure that if it was something where you collected data that their photos were not taken? So if you had a child who is in a domestic situation, then there's no evidence that that child was involved. Excuse me. Additionally, don't say that the students were randomly assigned names and numbers. Once again, I hear this every semester and it is a regurgitation of what was said previously. If it is not something that you actually did, don't say it. You really should talk about what you actually did. When it comes to the confidentiality of the students and you talk about the way that you had your sample, please also don't say this was a random sample, especially if you then go and say, I intentionally put students in a group A and group B. It's not random. If you chose the students who are going to go in group A, you chose the students who are going to go group B, that is no longer random. It is intentional about how you're going to have your control group and your experimental group. IRB. The reason why you would have to have IRB and go before the Institutional Research Board, if you didn't know what that means, IRB stands for Institutional Research Board. That's generally where you have to have permission to conduct research. Please do not tell me that you got IRB approval if you didn't. Getting IRB approval is a really, really long process. I know because I have done multiple research papers, done multiple research projects, and it was something that I also had to do for my dissertation. You have to get in touch with the school board. You have to get in touch with the university board. You have to get in touch with the district. IRB, if you did not need IRB approval for this, and you didn't have to reach out to the school district to get permission to have students participate, simply say, this project did not require IRB approval. Oh, but be careful because I could, in my comments, say to you, this sounds like a project that should have gotten IRB approval. Did you check with your professor before you conducted this research to get IRB approval? If you got it, great. Include that in your information. If you did not get IRB approval, then you need to say, I was not sure if I was supposed to have IRB approval. I conducted this research without it. That then becomes a limitation, ladies and gentlemen. That becomes a limitation to your work because it's possible that you were supposed to get something you didn't. So then you talk about that because that is an additional ethical concern. What I'm telling you now are some things that I have seen in other projects where all scholars did was simply repeat what their professor told them before and they put it in their paper and everybody's project sounds exactly the same. Trying to help you out here. Okay. Then you go to your results. You have given me background information, original data. You've told me what the problem is that concerns you, the research that you wanted to conduct. You then talk about the research, summarize the information that you gathered, tell me what the sampling methods were and the procedure that you went through to get this information. Then you have to present your results. This is what I researched. This is what I found. My second graders started at this particular level. I did the intervention plan with them for 2 months. This is how I introduced the intervention plan. Here are the final results. Most of you should have been able to actually implement your research plan. If you did not implement your research plan, you will have to say that the time of the school year or the time of the semester did not allow you to actually implement this. So therefore, you don't have actual results. However, if I had conducted this study, this is what I believe my results would have been. I believe that my second graders would have done fill in the blank. And here is a chart or a graph to show you what I believe the projected results would have been. Once again, if you didn't conduct the research, even as you're talking about your procedures, talk about what would have happened. And that makes me think, if you did not actually conduct research at the very beginning of your video, you have to tell me that you didn't conduct the research. Because as I'm listening to your video, I'm going to listen to it in the mindset that this did take place. If it did not, then I just need to know so that as I'm watching your videos, I understand that you did not do it. And all of this is proposed of what you would have done. You're going to have to connect your data and your action plan to student achievement. Everything has to be about what the students did. How much growth did they make? How much progress did they show? What are the results and how can you be proud of that? The other thing, the next bullet says, to see student achievement growth, what change in the data would you need to see? So if your students, you put in an intervention and they actually did not advance at all, it's okay to say that. You can say they did not have any growth. But what you should have done instead was fill in the blank. Talk about, if I really wanted to see them do better, this is the intervention that I should have done. This leads you into your reflection. Explain the changes that you would have made to your original plan. If you had to do this all over again, what are the things you would have done differently? What intervention would have been different? What additional intervention would you have made? What would you have removed? What would you have added? Think about what the results mean. The real results or the projected results. Talk about the implications for this. But what does this mean for future students? Now, if you're looking at just second graders, you can't generalize this intervention all the way across other grade levels. You can really only look at it for your particular grade level to say, okay, well, I know next year I can put this intervention in place much earlier to help my students in a certain way. The last thing that you need to talk about is any additional research that should be done to improve student achievement. This is the research project that you have done. If another colleague was going to do research, what research should they do that should add to what you have? Okay, now I am going to show you, let's go back here where we are. Nope. Let's go to, I am now going to share my screen again. Sorry, I always take off the share screen so I can make sure I'm going to the right thing. I'm going to share my screen again so that we can get to the rubric. Now, what I'm thinking, where I've always had an issue, is that the writing rubric ends up along with it, and I'm not grading you on the writing. Do not be concerned about that. I'm not grading you on your writing. Where I'm going to grade you is going to be on the, let's scroll down one more, because this is all writing components. Oh, okay. Let's go back up here. They've broken it down into two sections. See if I can increase my screen. All right. Pay attention to the rubric. Even though I've just given you an overview, I want you to go into Module 5 and actually look at the rubric that the department has set for this. Here are the categories. You're going to have to talk about the literature that you used. You will have to discuss what does the background information say about the research topic. So your paper should have had maybe 8, 9, or 10 different theorists in there. You had to do some research. You need to include that in your first set of slides by just making a quick reference to that. So you can say the literature says, give a couple of bullet points, and then put the name of the author with the date. You do not have to give me every single research source that you have, but you've got to give 3 or 4, because you will be, excuse me, I'm talking so fast. You will be evaluated on that. See right here, it says literature review supports identified best practices. So there has to be something in there that actually shows that you conducted research on it. So you'll do your in-text citations within the body of your slides, and you can put your full list of references on the last slide. You have to, yeah, this is still part of the writing components. I'm not sure why they put the two of these together, but you do have to give the literature portion. Let's come down here. All right, here it is. Like I said, they combine the rubrics and it gets confusing. That's why I'm making this video. So for the video length, it says video length is appropriate and adhered to in the outline requirements. You can't do it in 8 minutes. That is one thing I know. If you try to give your video in just 8 minutes, you're going to leave out something. But you also have to consider how many of these videos I have to watch. If everyone's video is 20 to 30 minutes, and we do that times maybe 25 students that I have to grade, because some people are Alt A, you all, I would never get all of these graded. I tried it one summer, and I know I stayed up till about 4 o'clock in the morning trying to grade 2 classes. I was sick for a week. So while this is not about me, this is about me. I will stop watching your video after the time limit. I know that you can't do it in 8 minutes. 10 minutes is pretty good. Probably the max I will allow is 11 to 12 minutes. After about 11 to 12 minutes, I'm going to stop watching. If I look at your video, the timestamp, and it says 13 minutes, then I know, okay, it's getting too far. But I do think that I put in here, I think I put in that you can do 15 minutes. Let me double check, because I don't want to tell you the wrong thing and bite my tongue. Okay, yes, this says your video should be 8 to 15 minutes. After 15 minutes, the professor will no longer view the video. There we go. All right. You all, please don't go past 15 minutes. It's too much. It's too much. All right. I will evaluate yes on the video length. If it goes past it, I'm going to tell you automatically, I'm going to hit unacceptable off the top, and I'll stop at the certain time frame. Pre-project data, you have to tell me what the data are and then connect it to the problem. Pre-project data is, see, I didn't write that. It should be pre-project data are, but nevertheless, yeah, okay. Nevertheless, you have to give the data that brought you to this problem and then make sure you connect it with whatever the issue is. Give me as much background information as you can. Here is where it's connected to the literature. Connection between background and literature is included, and credible sources, are referenced in the discussion. I need to know what your timeline is. This is all the stuff I just spoke about a moment ago. Yeah, the action plan and the timeline, it has to be realistic. So you have to essentially say, this is when I started, this is how long it took, or this is when I planned to start. I was only going to have it take 2 months, but I ended up having to extend it to 3 months. You just have to tell me what the plan was, what the timeline was, and be detailed in that. Connection to student achievement. Impact on student achievement is described in the connection between the plan and what the expectation is. To see positive student achievement is clearly specified. So be sure to connect the level that you want your students to reach after this project. And I told you about all key ethical issues need to be discussed. Analyze your action plan. What did you do well? The good, the bad, and the ugly. What could you have improved upon? Let's talk about improvements. What could you do differently next time? And then what are the next steps? I'm going to have to look to see if I have any examples of previous signature projects. Usually if there's some video or something, I try to share that. I don't know about the signature projects. This is what I will tell you for your slides. Please, please, please do not write full paragraphs. And do not read directly from the slides. If you write a full paragraph and then you go back and you read word for word what is on the slides, I'm going to take off points. And there's a strong likelihood that I won't listen to the video. Now, some people think that my methods are a bit harsh. I can't do anything about that. What I'm telling you is that as a graduate level scholar, there are certain presentation styles that you need to practice. And one of them is you do not write full paragraphs on slides. You do not read directly from the slides. Whatever your bullet points are, you present those and then you talk about the bullet points. So then that way I'll know, all right, this scholar has 5 bullets on the slide. That person is going to give me the overview of those 5 points. I know what I'm looking forward to. Because the truth is, if there's no audio, then all I have is like your bullets. But if you write paragraphs, I don't need to listen to your audio. I can just read the paragraph. And that's not what I'm supposed to do. So practice good presentation skills. The other thing that I'm going to tell you, it may not be on that rubric, but I will find a way to count off for it. Do not record your video in a dark room. Like right now, I'm in my office and I'm chilly, so I have on my UWA sweatshirt. This does say UWA. I have on my UWA sweatshirt, but I've got my blinds open, so there's plenty of light. Please do not be in a dark room. Please do not lay down on your bed or on your couch to record that. That is unprofessional. Do not have a lot of noise in the background. As you can see, I paused my video because I knew someone was ringing my doorbell and my dog was going to go crazy. He was going to start barking. I paused the video because it would have been rude for me to have that in the background, even though it's natural to hear a dog. You do not need to have noise in the background. You do not need to have a bunch of distractions in the background. If you need to record this video and go to the library and reserve a space, do that. If you need to do it at school, after school has ended so that you can have a professional background, do it. I cannot emphasize enough to you how important it is to show your professionalism. You should not be in pajamas. You should not be doing anything that you think does not represent you well. After you watch this video, if you still have questions, it is no problem. Send me your questions. I will do the absolute best that I can to answer them. But the other thing is that if this is just giving you too much of a headache, schedule a Zoom call with me. Let's talk about it so I can walk you through it so that this does not become problematic for you. All right. Thank you very much for your time.